So good morning. In honor of Randy wearing his Expo 67 shirt, I
I
think
know,
we
I
were
did it on
Expo
purpose.
67 today. Now, is that a vintage shirt or from 67 or one that's been redone?
No, I ordered it like about a year ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how some things last and others, that there were certain things like certain things. I'm just trying to pull something up here. Some shirts you just wear and love them, and then you love them too much and they wear out. And uh, I imagine a shirt from Expo 67 would be well worn by now.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't fit me either if I had.
That is a known statistically proven problem that shirts shrink over the years.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
especially the waist and pants.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
It's what's really amazing is every now and then you see somebody said I can still wear my World War II uniform or something like that. And I tried one day to put on my Boy Scout uniform from '67, and I almost got the buttons to touch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when Delta, this was like 20 years ago, they introduced a new uniform, and uh, like a week prior to the us actually wearing them, they allowed us on one day to wear old uniforms from not just Delta, because Delta is comprised of many airlines like Pan Am, the old Northeast, Western, a couple others. Anyways, everybody was trying to squeeze into these uniforms. I tried. Oh my God. I got into Western had a Hawaii uniform and I got into that, but I thought if I blowed it all on the airplane, which I do, they're gonna have to cut me out of this thing. I but there was one gal that I flew with, she wore her old Western uniform. The only thing she did admit to is she had to fasten the pants in the back with a safety pin because she couldn't quite get it done.
Hey, Carol, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I did you see the message from Tom Brooks? He said,
No.
please let Wendy in, but there's no Wendy in the waiting room that I can see.
Oh,
So
no.
I don't know who
Okay.
Wendy is.
She just said she'd like to join us today.
Well, then
Well,
she needs to,
yeah.
how does she do it?
Well, she
Oh,
has to have the link.
maybe she hasn't tried yet.
I don't think she has.
Right, right.
Yeah, there's a policewoman that I work with that likes to go to events from the raising charity money for the police museum and that, and she's able to wear a 1940s LAPD policewoman's outfit. And of course, she's incredibly thin anyway, but every time you see her, you go, "Holy crap!" I mean, back then the badges actually said policewoman instead of police officer, and
Right.
they had their little. She's got the whole bit with the little pillbox hat and the little purse that goes with it and the white gloves and everything. And you see some of the police women now, and they've got the tattoos and all the rest of it. And things change so much, but every time Maggie puts a uniform on, the high heels,
Well,
it's
yeah, we finally decided the reason why almost none of us could fit into our uniforms is we had weight standards back then.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have to diet. I'd have to lose 5 pounds, like starting at 2 weeks before my quarterly weigh-in to lose 5 pounds, or I wouldn't pass. And I'm thin. Yeah, they were ridiculously stringent.
Well, Beth has to drop off early today too, so and her son's going to Ireland. I hope he enjoys it.
Oh,
So
fun.
without further ado, we better get to the good stuff because we don't want to upset Brock and we don't want to upset Beth. So hang on, share screen. Okay, so this is going to be again pictures going back for Expo 67 from this. When I started scanning them years ago, this would be the very first one that I had scanned. The date on here is 2008 that it was scanned, but I had actually scanned it beforehand in what you call it. Hang on, I'm just closing a window here, which is really annoying. I had scanned them all in 2900 DPI and now upgraded them to 4000. So for folks that may be watching this on YouTube later that are not as familiar with some of it as we are, Expo 67 was originally supposed to be in Montreal, sorry, Moscow. And Moscow started working on it and then dropped out for a variety of reasons. One was they probably just couldn't afford it. Second, a number of people were not showing much interest. So Montreal had put in a pitch for it. They had been number 2, and when Moscow dropped out, Montreal got the bid for it. And it was an amazing construction project, building the islands out in the river, enlarging an existing island, building some 2 totally man-made islands. It remains, to me, one of the most spectacular of all expos. Not only that they pulled it off in that amount of time, but the quality of what they pulled off, I thought was really remarkable. So in this particular shot, we're walking over to the main entrance, and for folks that are not familiar with Montreal, you can see just how close the fair was to downtown Montreal, and including the Port of Montreal. So I don't know if they still sell Farine 5 Roses Flower or not, but it really was, again, one of my favorite of all World's Fairs.
Well, that's the sign to go with the sign from New
Jane
York.
Parker.
Yeah, exactly. That's their
Yeah,
Jane
right.
Parker sign.
Right. They didn't make any effort to block it out, though.
Yeah.
I wonder, I'm guessing it was probably there already.
Oh yeah, I'm sure this was here. I mean, this
Yeah.
whole mill and everything here. Like I said, you can see all the industrial, and on the next shot, you can see again right here where the port is. You know, it's like it was just a literal stone throw away from downtown Montreal, which made it.
Are those long structures conveyors?
Yes, yeah, the conveyors for the what you call it, the mill, the flour processing plant. So there were all sorts of ships there, and we can see a bunch of Mounties here in the center, and they had their displays that they did out there. So we get to Swan Lake, and again, so much of this is man-made, and they just did a wonderful job. But Swan Lake, they put a bunch of swans out on it to give it the name. But just in this one particular shot, you can see the round building there of the telephone pavilion, the dome of the U.S. pavilion, some of the theme pavilions there, Scandinavia off to the side. Swan Lake is still there today, but all the concrete edging and everything has been taken out, and unfortunately all the fountains and stuff, but it's still a recognizable part of the site. And Randy, I know you were there. Anytime you want to add in with any
No,
memories?
I wasn't there.
Oh, you weren't there. I thought you were. Oh,
No,
okay.
no. As a kid, I studied it, what's the word, voraciously, but through magazine and newspapers and all that, but no,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, again, from your studying, if you have anything to add that I missed or correct, to jump in. So they had the mini rail system. They actually had 2 of them there, and they bought a number of things from Expo 64. And everybody goes, Expo 64? No, that was New York 64. No, and Expo 64 was in Switzerland, and that was the official World's Fair that year for the BIE to kind of give Robert Moses and his unofficial World's Fair the finger. So this is a system that they bought over from there. They also bought the Spiral Tower from that's going to be, we'll see that in the Laurent amusement area. But the mini rail proved to be very popular because it was a great way to see the fairgrounds. I think it was 25 cents was the price of it, and it became too popular because people would just ride it and ride it and ride it, trying to get another view of this. And you'd ride it sitting on the left side, then you'd switch over to the right side, and they finally said, okay, no more never-ending round trips. We're going to take you from station to station, and then you got to get off or pay another quarter to go for another ride. But it's really nice that it was a victim of its own success that it was so popular. After Expo closed, it continued to run for quite a few number of years, repainted with different paint schemes for the various years of Man and His World. Here's a playground that you could bring your kids to, and the buildings on the left, there were some buildings that were existing buildings on the island that were repurposed for the fair. Others were basically just mothballed for the fair. They had some swimming pools and other items over here. But you can see the playground down below. You have a sort of the monkey bars the kids could climb on. The colorful buildings the kids could go in and play. And there was a fence outside. You can just see it going along here, the black fence. Parents were encouraged to come by and look at their kids playing and enjoy themselves. That was a great thing. And if you had a kid and they didn't want to go see the exhibits at say, I don't know, the Czechoslovakian pavilion, go over and park them here in the playground and pay whatever it was, dollars per hour, and the kids could have a great time. Then
Bill,
the
the pool house on the left of that last photo was actually used for the hostess's locker room.
yes, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they repurpose some of these things, not necessarily for exhibits, but they have the people that work there. They had a facility that they could come in and store their street clothes and change into their expo clothes. And these buildings, I believe, are still there today. I'm sure, I don't think the last time I was there, they were still there.
Yeah, I think the pools have been expanded, but yeah, I think
Yes.
that building is still there.
Right. And then we have the famous geodesic dome, Buckminster Fuller, and down below flags of the on the outer perimeter you had the United States flags, and on the interior flagpoles you had the 50 flags of the United States. You can see the mini rail track on the left going into, and just over here on the right coming out of the pavilion. And we'll probably see more details on that. And then the Cold War was big time stuff. So across the Cosmos Walk, going across the Lemoyne Channel, we have the USSR Pavilion, which was absolutely huge in its size. So you had on one side of the water, the US, the other side, the USSR. At night, the two of them are lit up really spectacularly. And it was really both countries trying to show that we're better than the other. The interior of the two countries probably could not have been more different, where the USA was all sorts of things like Hollywood and Raggedy Ann dolls and Indian chief headdresses, and over in the USSR, you had a little bit of some things like nesting dolls and that, but for the most part, it was atomic reactors and Sputnik and that sort of thing. And then down here, the triangle pavilion was the steel pavilion. So we're up at the top of France here and looking across over to Canada. The triangular building was the Katimavik, and it's that's a native term for meeting place. Down below is the People Tree, which was comprised of pictures of people from Canada, but also sounds from Canada. So when you would stand under the People Tree, you could hear sounds of a sawmill or sounds of a schoolyard, or then you'd hear a bunch of electric typewriters or the roar of a turbine or a farm thresher. It was just a whole neat tribute to the many different ways that make up Canadian society. And again, for a bunch of the people on here today, this is probably all old hat, but I do get probably 4 times the number of people looking at Facebook. So rather than just flip through it, try to give a little bit of background to it. You can see the other mini rail system down here, different design of the cars winding its way through the facility. Over here, 4 pine trees growing up through the roof of the building here to celebrate the Northwest and all the pine forests and the contribution to society there. And we go inside the USA. So we had modern art. Again, this is 1967, so things are mod and popping and hot. So you had a big motif here of the USA. Over here, neon art, the mini rail coming through and going through it. Then you had these large platforms, which are the building is still there today. The plastic skin burned out, but the plastic so the panels are, the framework is there, but it's used for the biosphere. But these large platforms are there with various displays on it. Over here, you can see a thing that they had hoped for, knowing that the sun was going to beat down on this thing. They had this plan that these panels would open and shut to keep the sun out, at different times of day. And it turned out they didn't work. Luckily, they had really over-engineered the air conditioning component for the building, so it never got really uncomfortable. But this was the idea that when the sun came through this time of the day, these panels could close over. And again, sometimes things work great in theory, and then they really don't. So let me get the next set of slides here.
Sure
So,
would hate to see the air conditioning bill for that building.
oh, I can imagine it was just enormous. It just absolutely astonishing. But hey, we had to show the Russians, right?
Yep.
So it's a nice day. It looks like the rain has just ended. The streets are all wet down here. Up here in the back, this tower is still there. Again, one of the pre-existing buildings. They added a large carillon to it for Expo, and like most carillons, it had pre-recorded music, or they could bring people in and play songs on it. And it was loud enough you could hear it across a pretty good portion of the Expo site. Over here we have Maine. We'll probably see more of that. Probably the least interesting pavilion over there. Over here, this is the Scouts of Canada, and you can see, just make out some of the little red jackets, just like we had red jackets in New York for the Boy Scouts. They had red jackets here, and it was kind of fun just to go and talk. You know, you think Boy Scouts, well, they had their Boy Scouts, we had our Boy Scouts. They were actually called Scouts of Canada, and you know, their uniforms totally different than ours and everything, but it was still fun to go and talk to them and you know, compare our programs to their programs. The telephone pavilion was done by Bell of Canada, and it was a 360 movie done by Walt Disney, and very, very popular. You can see the lines all down there across the front. They go back across. It was a very well done film, which when we were getting ready to do Epcot, and we set up the 360-degree theater on a stage in Burbank to test out the films, we were able to go and get the old Canada film, put it up there, and then use pieces of that for the what you call it, the Canada Pavilion. After Expo 67, they later reused this film at Expo 86. It's a great film. I think, frankly, better than what you know. I shouldn't say this, but better than what's at Epcot. But anyway, very, very popular. Again, over here in the very back, you have Venezuela, which I think was really masterful. Just absolute solid cubes, you know, no architectural design or anything, but you put such bright contrasting colors. You look at, for me at least, I look at this picture, and then one of the very first things I'm looking back here is the big walls of color out there. Over here, the colored roofs are Africa Place. Then we have Czechoslovakia, which turned out to be one of the smash hits of the fair. And then over here, a forerunner of all IKEAs, we have the Scandinavia Pavilion. Then, as I mentioned in my book, when they were trying to put the theme pavilions together, they were having problems with, you know, trying to weld all these things together. And, you know, it was a question, do you rivet it? Oh my God, how many rivets is that going to take? Let's weld it. How many welders are we going to need? So they were real challenges to get these things put together. And again, they stayed there for quite a few years after the fair ended. If you ever want to see a very, very strange film called Quintet by Robert Altman, they filmed it out here on the ruins of the Expo 67 site. And there's some shots where they go into, they did quite a bit of it inside the French pavilion, but they also spent some time going through this area here. Also, Battlestar Galactica did a show where they go to a distant planet, and the character Starbuck is actually walking along some of the walkways up here. Down below, again, just a very nice looking day out here. We have a patio out here for a restaurant, just so we make sure they're not forgotten. Just like New York, we get a lot of nuns, so they're out there enjoying this. So today, you know, you'd look at this, you probably have to have a 3-foot high fence to keep people from falling into the fountain and suing you. But back then, people took their chances. I always get a kick when people post a video online of somebody looking at their phone and they walk into a fountain at a mall or into a tunnel. And Alexander Calder built this giant statue, which is got a couple different names, but man is one of them. It was all pre-cut and put together overseas, taken apart and brought over here. Down below, cleverly hidden restrooms, then some sculpture gardens here outside of Scandinavia. The statue is still on the site, but it's been relocated to another area of the current park, but it's still there. And Carol and I had gone to an art museum out here, and when we walked in, I said, "Oh, there's a Calder," and she knows I'm not much on art, and I think I impressed her that I was actually able to recognize his stuff. This bridge here was it's still there, but they took the suspension cables off in a refurbishing job. They realized that the bridge is actually stronger without the cables, which seems not to make any sense. But they found that the wind that was whipping through here was causing the cables to vibrate, which was causing more issues with the bridge. So that the bridge itself, just taking the cables off, is actually stronger. So sometimes the things you learn, from the lab into reality. And then down here, the restrooms. Here's again Scandinavia.
Bill, wasn't there a lounge under that too?
Yes, there was. It was sort of like their Expo club sort of thing.
Okay.
For VIPs and people that wanted to pay money. Yeah. Matter of fact, I think this is a skylight for it here. Now, again, building this thing to me was just real impressive because the St. Lawrence River really rips through here. You can see all the water going over the rocks and everything. It's such a strong river that over by where Habitat is built, people actually go out not windsurfing, but go on a surfboard tied to a rope tied to the shore, and they're able to go off back and forth and have quite a ride out on a river. So all this out here was all filled. It was dumped out to fill up the river. To me, it had to be. You start with a whole bunch of rocks and just hope that the river doesn't wash them all away. But all this was man-made, and part of it was fill that came from the Expo, the Montreal subway system, but not all of it was. So they had to go to all sorts of places and bring in rocks and dirt and fill it all in. Speaking of Habitat, again, this is a supposed city housing of the future. The guy Moshe Saidi, I think it's pronounced, or something close to that. It was originally going to be about 3 times the size, but then they had to cut it back for economics and again for time. And for time, you can see the place is open, but they're still putting in the walkways and the gardens. So you can see all the forming of it all over here. So most of Expo was open on opening day. They had a few things that they had to finish up, and some of it was the groundskeeping and stuff like here. But this has become a very, very chic spot to live in Montreal. And again, when I win the lottery, I will think about getting it. Now, here's a typical thing. We have the walkways here and everything, but with the shoes or whatever, I don't want to walk on the rock because they haven't poured concrete yet. So I'm just going to walk on the grass, which is why there's pretty much no grass. I like this view. You can see again, people were actually living in here during the time of Expo. It wasn't just a exhibit. So everybody's customized their unit with their umbrellas and their beach chairs and everything like that. And if you were living there, you had to get a special pass to get through the Expo gates, and you had to get a special pass for your maid to come in or packages to be delivered. And if you were having a party, you had to go and get all of your guests special passes. So Brock's son would have had to get 50 passes for his son's birthday party today. And the people said it was a very strange experience living inside a World's Fair exhibit. One of the pavilions or one of the units was open for exhibits, but sometimes people would get tired of waiting on the line, just knock at doors and say, "Could I take a quick look around?" So that would be rather strange. Very, very popular pavilion, Labyrinth. It's this whole giant concrete building had a very large set of theaters inside, where something that would put a Omnimax theater to shame. but you would go in and they would talk about how life is like a maze. You go through various stages, various twists, turns, false starts, and everything. And then the film was done in a 3-story. The main film was done in, I think it was a 3-story area where you came and stood on balconies, and then they had the screen going off there. This is the sort of thing where you can only do this at a World's Fair. I mean, you can take certain things, like we can take say the ride through the General Motors Pavilion at the 64 Fair and capture the experience on film. But when you had doing something that's on multiple screens that are 3 stories tall with a variety of projection techniques and everything, Expo 67 was very, very well known for using a tremendous number of films. Quite a few magazines cover that, where they didn't have a lot of giant rides like 64 had the Ford Pavilion and the GM Pavilion, and even GE with the rotating theater. Expo 67 was really, really big on films of all sorts of different formats. Off to Swan Lake, we have the Expo Express train station here, which connected the various islands together. The world's first fully automated train system. Oh, this one I really love. We all, for fans of the 64 Fair, love the 64 street lights, but the Expo 67 street lights were really, really neat in their own. They had the top here part was just merely a reflecting disc, and all the light came from a fluorescent tube that was beamed up through the top, bounced out here, and came out and lit the area. So it made for a very soft diffused lighting. It wasn't a very bright, glary sort of thing. And they had different ones at different heights, at different angles to go around the area. These tubes were made out of fiberglass. Over time, they started to deteriorate. They ripped a whole bunch of them out, and some of the Man in His World pictures, the former heliport, just covered in these things lying in the ground. They're just like in New York. They should put one at least back on site to show what they were. But I keep thinking, wouldn't this make a great table lamp? I mean, if I had a 3D printer, I would definitely be trying to make a 3D lamp here. Over to the right, the red being emergency, they had this public address system so they could make announcements for lost kids. Over here, the Pavilion of Vermont, Japan in the background. One thing they did realize they made a mistake on for Expo, and again, you study these things, you work on them or whatever. They had trash cans here, and you can see another trash can at the end of the bench here, and a trash can over here. And you may notice the trash cans are filling up. They realized they had not put enough trash receptacles on the property. So they made an emergency appeal to other cities across Canada. Could you please lend us your trash cans for the summer? And all sorts of cities stepped up, and they said, okay, here you want some trash cans from Saskatchewan, but they sent them in. So they were all scattered around, and then after Expo ended, they sent them back. And when they decided to stay open for Man in His World, they had to go and get more trash cans. And I've told the story before, but we went there and they had a trash can that was really, really cute. It was robot controlled, and this would have been about 69. And it would follow people around and bump into them, and they'd be walking down the walkway, and all this, they'd get bumped and they turn around, there'd be nobody there, a trash can, and they'd walk and the trash can would bump them, and they'd turn around and try to figure out, and the trash can would say something like, "Are you going to finish that? I'm hungry." And people would just about faint. They did it. It was really, really clever. Disney years later did a talking trash can, and it didn't last long because everybody wanted their picture taken with it and everything else. But I remember sitting on a bench and just watching that, just laughing my ass off. It was really funny to see. Iran, very much in the news today, but it was a very popular pavilion back in 67. So all the tile work here was, these things were done, look like Persian carpets, and they were very elaborate tiles. I do have some other pictures that really show it. These are all hand set pieces of tile work here. It was inside a very popular restaurant. and again, lasted for a number of years. As regimes changed, at one point, it was decided that the tile work was too gaudy, let's paint it. Also, some of the tile work was falling apart. Rather than fix it, let's paint it. So there's a number of pictures over the years of these just orange columns. But again, that's a lot of work to put all that together for something that's going to last 6 months. These signboards are really new. I mean, today we take everything for granted. We were watching the Dodger game last night, and of course, Dodger Stadium has 8 bajillion signs in it, with video screens and displays and everything. But to actually have a signboard here that could be lit up and changed was really a big thing. The signs were all done on paper tape that they would punch out on a teletype type machine, read them on a reader at the GE command center, and put them up there. And to give an idea how big the signs were, look at the lady down below. There was somebody that posted online a number of years ago how they went out to the site in the winter between seasons and they climbed up inside the sign. You can see the base down here is just a wire mesh. They were able to climb up, and they said, their picture here, they filled up maybe to like here. These things were huge, but these were really big, very, very popular. Around here, all these little colored things, they're stuff like transformers and other parts of connections and parts of the lifeblood, but nicely done. They don't really stand out. You can see again all the rocks that they had to dump in the river to build this island, and then they tried to cover this all with sod and grass, but the rains got rainy right near the beginning of Expo, and a lot of the sod and everything slid into the river. I imagine they were probably worried the rest of the island was going to slide in too. A beer garden. What would a World's Fair be without a beer garden? In the background, you have a number of the Arab pavilions. Over here, the UK. Thailand, which was transported over from the 64 World's Fair. Burma. Sermons from Science over to the left. A perennial exhibit at World's Fairs. Mentioned this in other talks, one of my favorites, the Canadian Pulp and Paper Pavilion. Again, if you're an architect and you get a thing to build a building, that's going to be a 7-Eleven, how exciting that could be. But if somebody says, hey, I want you to build a building that looks like a bunch of trees in a forest, you gotta have fun with that. Again, just being a photo nut, my eye was drawn to this. It's just, where do you see this in your hometown, right?
Yeah, according to Robert Fulford, who wrote the book This Was Expo, that was the most photographed building on the site.
Yeah, I could see why. I mean, it was just really a kick to see it. And in later years, and now they move out, Pulp and Paper moves out, and other people move in. And what do you do with a roof that's shaped like trees? You paint it orange, you paint it blue. I mean, it looked really weird when it was the police exhibit or what you call it, Interpol exhibit one year, and the whole roof was painted with blue triangles. It made no sense. The green, you just instantly knew it was green trees, but blue triangles, it just was a weird looking building. So I was always glad to see it survive, but it was just strange to see it redone. And here we're riding the mini rail. You can see that would it be very easy to fall out today. Of course, they would have to change everything. But France over in the background, still there today as a casino. Over here again, let's see, this one, I'm trying to remember which one. Randy, help me.
Yugoslavia.
No, was this Yugoslavia, the triangle one here? Okay, thanks. Yeah. This, I believe, is still there today. Jamaica?
Yeah, it was in fact, it was almost totally rebuilt a couple of years ago. Still looks the same, but yeah.
Yeah, you can rent it out, have weddings and things like that there. Monaco, again, it was truly a World's Fair where Robert Moses pissed off the BIE and they forbid member nations from participating. Expo 67 welcomed them. They followed all the BIE rules. So you had all sorts of international exhibits that we had not enjoyed in New York. Canada Pavilion, part of that is still there today. Again, you can rent it out for weddings and things like that. This, again, the 1960s, right? So you have to have an op art type of design of your seating area. So you had the stage here. Thing I get a kick out of putting this fire hydrant right out here. We don't put it out. I mean, there's probably some plan that said the fire hydrants had to be every 72.7 feet or something. So bam, right here. So right in the walkway, right as people walk in, rather than stick it here where it'd be safe. I just wonder how many shins met this thing, particularly, you know, leaving a nighttime concert or anything.
There are some great photos though taken of, you know, that contrast of that red fire hydrant in that op art plaza. And there's one with like a
Yeah.
boy running around it. It gave some photographic, you know, opportunities.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy. I mean, you
Oh, no,
know,
you're right.
why it ended up there. There's one in New York. I don't remember where it was again, where the fire hydrant is right smack dab in the walkway to some pavilion. And you know, somebody said, why was it there? Well, because in 1939, when the fire hydrant was put in and the plumbing was put in, there was no pavilion there, and they just had to work around it because there was no way they were going to take the time and money to rebuild a fire hydrant. Um, Here though, this was all new. So again, how it ended up there. Sign down here below, you can see the sign. You could have the ferries. You could go around for 50 cents. You could take the Vaporetto ferries and go around the canals. This particular one is inside Czechoslovakia. It's not the greatest for lighting, but they had all sorts of sculptures and wood carvings and things in there. This is one I stitched together from about 3 different films, giving I think, a nice panorama view of the ground. So again, you can see it curves way back over here. I mean, it was a very large site to walk around. Um, just like when I went back to take pictures of the then and now of this for the 64 book, you know, it takes forever just to walk the site, let alone stand on any of the lines, let alone see any of the shows. So Expo was definitely a multi-day experience. Again, US Pavilion, Canadian Pacific, Cominco, their whole thing was explore your senses. So if you went in there, you were encouraged to touch things and see how some things felt fuzzy, some things felt hard, some things were cold, some things were hot. So unlike most exhibits where you're told don't touch anything, the whole thing in there was to go in. And if you were blindfolded, could you figure out what you were touching? Then they had down here, you have what they call Expo services, all sorts of small shops and that sort of thing, and multi-level, so you can have a seating area up above. Down below, we have Expo 67 was very instrumental in coming up with pictographs for because again, much of this area is bilingual. And if you're having people come from around the world, how many languages do you put the signs on for men and women's room? So if you go with pictures and do it, they realized they had to redo the pictures because the one for the women didn't make a lot of sense that they first came up with. So they redid them. But again, I love the details of 35mm slides. Over here on the right, we can go get donut puffs. We can get the ever popular hot dog on a stick, soft drinks, and then we have the same thing listed in what you call it in French. Doesn't a beignet puff sound much more appealing than a donut puff? And then I'm not even going to try to mispronounce hot dog on a stick in French. So, do we have any French speakers that can give that a whack?
No, I'm not a French speaker. I was going to say in this picture, looking at the Canadian Paper and Pulp Company building from that angle, it really looks like a forest. When you're not seeing the bottom of the building, say, oh, it's part of a building, it really looks like a forested back, an artistic forested background there in that scene.
And then Thailand, as I mentioned, it came over from the 64 fair. They brought it over, expanded it, did quite a bit more. And then, again, very popular, particularly the restaurant there. And then just down the road from that was Burma. We had not had that at the 64 fair. So it was a nice addition up here for Montreal. And here you can see again, this was the main section that was there for New York. They had this section here was expanded for the restaurant and exhibits, but down below they brought in a royal barge. And again, people weren't supposed to go down here, but I've got pictures of people, you know, I always wonder how many people came down and fell into the water, but the royal barge, all this was added. Over here is Kaleidoscope, another movie presentation. Again, the Canada Pavilion being the host nation, it was the largest geographical footprint on the fairground, and had each of the Canadian provinces had their own exhibit, including the smallest one of all was Yukon, which is added at the very last minute when they realized that everybody else is building a pavilion and we're not. So they had to go and fit inside a gift shop size area in one of the Expo Services building. But even Prince Edward Island was able to come up with a spot. But here for the main part of Canada, you could go up a stairwell or funicular transport up to the top. These shadows inside these translucent panels are sculptures, which one guy has a number of them in his yard in Montreal, and he was able to salvage them. And then we have the people tree over here, very large area. Another view of it. And here's the boat you could take on around the site. They had quite a few different boats that you go around. These were styled after the boats in Venice, but they also had what you call it, Viking boats you could ride out on, a whole variety of different things in different parts of it. Okay, let me get to the next set. So we're taking the walkway over to Africa. One of the things that was nice was they had quite a bit of color on the site. Just like New York, they would change out the flowers as the season went on. So we had spring or fall type flowers throughout it. Ceylon had this again, all beautiful tile work all put over here in this building with these are all little, I'm trying to remember if they were wood panels here. But again, a very nice exhibit inside of, growing tea and other things over there. This is the very, very edge of the Germany pavilion. So this concrete structure here is holding these cables, which hold up the suspended roof. So over here in the main part of the pavilion, with the suspended roof, you had a tremendous amount of exhibit space, but they also extended the roof out here to go over the eating and area. And you can see in here, you can have bands and choir groups and things performing here. The suspended roof was strong enough that would actually hold people walking on it that would go off and adjust it and make things. So it was all plastic panels, but very strong plastic, not plastic like hard plastic, but flexible, type plastic. Just more of the flowers, Africa in the background. When Africa was first done, this was all white. It was just too much white. It was not particularly eye appealing. They came out and they repainted sections of the roof and made it much more interesting. They got a nice view of habitat. Tell it's early on, nothing on the trees. Over here, India. Again, we're going back to pictures that somebody else took 60 something years ago. So sometimes you can only do so much focus wise. I may play with AI on some of these and see if it can help on any. I got a kick out of this one, all the tulips, and then again we have Tunisia, you have Ethiopia, you have a variety of others. And just like every place else, whatever you do, you build the walkways, and people still have to go and stand and walk on the grass. You can see that the lights here, they'd have a small tube down below bouncing up. But again, if we look at the whole size thing, the walkways and everything were very well lit at night, but it was a very nice diffused light. He did have some spotlights that were going in highlighting buildings, pavilions that were across from it. Uh, again, Iran here in the background. Just like New York, people dressed up. We're going to see lots of people in jackets and ties and that sort of thing. More Swan Lake. This restaurant here, this fellow made a big thing going to World's Fairs with his recipe, family recipe for French onion soup. And it became, he was an antique dealer. And during the year, he would, have his stores. But then I forget where the first World's Fair was that he did his French onion soup. I think it might have been Seattle. And he would just come, I'm shutting down there. The antique store for 6 months, and I'm going to go run my French onion soup. And he was at about 6 different World's Fairs, and it became very, very popular.
He was at San Antonio.
Yes, he was there for that. I think that might have been his last one. No, no, it was Expo 86. So yeah, 86 I think was the last one, but he was at San Antonio. Again, looking down at the Royal Barge. Mexico, again, this is blurry, so I won't spend a lot of time on it, but you had mariachi band playing out here to entertain people going into the main part of the pavilion. When the mariachis weren't playing, you were welcome to go up the stairs and pose up here. This part of the Canada Pavilion is still there today. Over here we have Haiti, their restaurant. Lots of sculptures. I've never seen any World's Fair or anything that had more sculptures than Expo 67. And there's entire catalogs put out of what they are. And to my surprise, a lot of times the artist just didn't name it. It was just the sculpture. So, you might have something here, like I think this was something like oblique number 7. But then others, you try to find them and put names to them. And to me, if I spent all the time to make it, I'd come up with a name, even if the name was just George or something. Inside here, this is inside the Morocco Pavilion. Native costumes and the front of a diorama. Again, interior shots are sometimes hard to get because film back then you used a lot of light or needed a lot of light. And if you had a flash cube, this was the days of flash cubes, it would go a whole 4 feet or so. They were meant to take pictures of your kids at a birthday party, not take pictures of a giant inside of a pavilion. Oh, one thing they did a lot of over at Expo was having street performers. They had clowns that would go around and do performances. They'd have entire parades. Matter of fact, one of the parades kind of got them in trouble because they were dressed in what looked very much like Nazi uniforms. I don't know if we'll see those today, but they had these people come in, and some people said that they came in and were paid. Others said they came in and did it for free, hoping to get gigs doing other things. So in this particular one, we see a fellow here with his movie camera, taking pictures of, I guess it's a bicycle built for free, and the clowns are going around. And I've got quite a few shots of the street performers out there entertaining people, and it's a great way, to entertain crowds and keep people amused in as they're waiting on lines. Yep, does look like a forest back there. You can see how big it was, again, from the size of the people here, realizing how large that pavilion was and how much it stood out. As I mentioned, USSR was very industrial. So in here we have things, one of their floating mining platforms. They were going to have giant arms come down and get manganese modules and add off the sea. So this big ship with its helipad on board. They did have some artwork. In this particular case, a stained glass map of the Moscow subway system. Kind of colorful. They also had, I mentioned before, nesting dolls. They did have some paintings. They did have some puppets. They did have some odds and ends in there that were less industrial, but overall the main theme of it was Russian industrial might. Some of their paintings. A pavilion like this, by the way, you could get a lot of interior shots because there was so much visible light coming in from the outside from the glass walls that it made the lighting inside much popular. Randy, you may get a kick looking at the old TWA bag
I
here.
see that, yeah.
Yeah, I actually still have one of my parents up there. I have upstairs. I have a Pan Am one and a TWA one.
Yeah.
They were really neat. I think they gave them out to first class, but you could buy them otherwise.
Yeah.
Well, again, off to Russian art. And more blocks of glass and a wall panel. As I mentioned at night, the pavilions really stood out because of their translucent skin. So inside, depending on the amount of light, you could see the Apollo capsules and everything else in here. And you can see again how the street lights, the light is shining up the column, bounces off. This one I've not been able to figure out where it is. It's somewhere on the site, and someday I will figure out which panel this is. So, ring any bells, Randy?
Not at all.
Yeah, because
Looks
originally I
kind of
thought,
like either Polynesian or even something from what was the boat that was on display? Did you say the Royal Barge or whatever it was? What country was that?
Thailand.
Thailand. There's that third panel in. It looks like there's a boat kind of like that, maybe about halfway up. I can't tell for sure, but
Yeah,
Yeah, it
But
looks
it's-
like nuns here.
you're right.
You know what?
it's
When
got an
I got-
American flag. If you look at that right-hand panel, there's an
Yeah.
American flag on it.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
yeah.
looks like a battle fleet coming into what you call it, Tokyo Harbor. You know, Admiral Perry's fleet. Yeah, I don't know what it is. When I first got this, I thought, oh, it's just some random picture stuck at the end of the roll. And then it showed up in a shot 4 years later from Man in His World. So it's definitely on site, but I've not been able to place it.
Well, maybe it's the history of expos because there's another panel there with nuns in it, right?
Yeah,
Well, and
Good
it
one.
kind of looks like in the panel with the American flag, those almost look like the Expo theme buildings in the background.
well, I don't know about that. Let's zoom in on it. It could.
Could it be
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Philippines?
I
Okay,
think
I
those
was-
are
that was-
ships. Those are old
No, I was seeing
battleships.
something totally different. You
Yeah.
put
Could it
just a little
be,
bit.
could it be Philippines?
Yeah,
I
I
don't
was
know.
thinking either the Philippines or American Samoa or someplace like that.
Neither of them had exhibits.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. They had walls.
Yeah.
So it was just weird to find. And so now we hop over to the amusement area, La Ronde, and you can get your fun hats. The hats with feathers were starting to die out during this period of time, but you do see them every now and then. And we can see here, if we look, that the message sign, again, they could customize it. So Miss Deborah Sullivan of Arlington, please call. I wish the number was all there. I'd call today and say, hey, I just got your message, but
Just
urgent.
call for Deborah. Is Deborah there?
Yeah. Yeah, you wonder how many people today, of course, you know, everybody could call for free. Back then, that would have been a fortune to call from
Well,
there. But
And you could do, I mean, I won't go do the whole joke, but from, I think Bette Midler and Danny DeVito, I think were in this movie.
oh yes, yes, right. Yeah.
You can't come to the phone because, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
we'll keep this
talk
PG.
because, yeah,
We'll keep this PG, Randy.
yeah, exactly.
That's such a great scene, though.
Yeah. Yeah, they kidnap Bette Midler. They eventually pay them to get rid of her.
Like the ransom of Red Cloud, right?
Ruthless
Yeah.
people. Ruthless people.
Yeah, ruthless people, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that was such a great one. Expo 67 souvenirs in the back. Inside the Caddy Mavic, again, guy has these in his backyard. I don't know if I'd want to walk out in the backyard and see those every day, but nice to know he's got them.
Wonder how he got them.
Probably sold at a surplus sale and it was all torn down.
Yeah. Have you ever asked Roger LaRoche about that mystery building that you can't figure out?
You know, I have to do that. I don't know if I did or not, but that's a very good point. I will have to do that. If there's anybody that knows anything about Expo, it's Roger.
All right.
Then I mentioned Man in His World. And Expo 67 closed. The mayor, Drapeau, decided that rather than tear this all down, why don't we keep it going as an amusement park and we'll reopen it as Man in His World. So they made offers to a lot of the nations. We'll buy your pavilion from you or you give it to us. All the communist nations took their pavilions back home, but most others are glad to say, I don't have to pay the money to tear it down. Let's do that. So here we see the former United States Pavilion and all the displays of Gemini capsules and lunar landers are gone. It's now called the Biosphere. And we have this fountain up on top of one of those platforms. So again, this was a real surprise to me. I went to college. I started in 1969, not far from Montreal. And we drove up to Montreal for a weekend, and I looked across as we were driving into town, and oh my goodness, the World's Fair is still there. Well, I just thought it'd be torn down like New York was torn down. So you can imagine I'm driving in with 3 other guys from college that want to go see the sights and sounds of Montreal, particularly women, and I convinced them to go and see Expo 67 reborn. And to my amazement, they enjoyed it. We had a hell of a good time, and we would go back periodically. So some of the pavilions were still there. In some cases, the nations continued to run them because they were good for tourism. Other cases, they were repurposed into other odds and ends. But again, this is 2 years after Expo closed, and there's so much of the pavilions are still there. Down below, you can see the crowds are much lighter than they were in the Expo days, but there's still a good number of people wandering around the site. So over here, we had the Maritime Provinces, if I remember right. Indians of Canada. Over here was the United Nations Pavilion, which I think in '69 was being used for something else. You can see the flags are here. But you know, all sorts of various odds and ends were still around. One of the things that was a real kick, each year you went back, things were moving over. So the United States Pavilion would be in one pavilion one year, another pavilion another year, back to the US Pavilion for 1 year, back over here. So you very definitely had to buy a map when you got to the site to figure out where you were and what was going on. Because if you try to do it out of memory, you'd be lost. And I have a chart on my website of all the reuses over the years. Over here, you can see the UK Pavilion is now the Quebec Pavilion, or the Montreal Pavilion, rather. So they've taken out the giant Union Jack up at the top and replaced it with the flag from Montreal. Now, some pavilions are gone. As I mentioned, all of the communist pavilions were taken away. So for whatever reason, they made a big thing about departing, and they picked them all up and relocated them. The USSR Pavilion is in a park in Moscow today, being redone. But they took the Cuba Pavilion and others. They picked them up and took them away. So
Cuba's still there.
What's that?
Cuba's still there in this picture.
Oh yes, that's right. Cuba's still here.
I think this is, I think, where Czechoslovakia was.
Is this where Czechoslovakia was?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to look for that mystery staircase.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right. So let's see, that's 69. Let's go back to 67 now. And again, kind of gray, gloomy day here, but you got the light poles, and I ran in the back. I have nicer ones showing the tile. Long line for the phone exhibit. You don't see too many women walking around with scarves on their heads anymore, do you? China had a bit of a problem in that they had a fire inside, so there was a this whole area got blackened out and had to be repaired, and they recalled the head of the pavilion back to China. This again is Formosa, Taiwan. It's not mainland China, but they were able to rebuild it and reopen it during the time of Expo. And they made a big thing about how our restaurant out back is still open. So come on and enjoy. Swan Lake. And relax in the lounge. It's on the Isle of Notre Dame. And then I don't know what all the little circles are supposed to be. The tea lounge. Okay. Not sure where that was, the tea lounge. Do you know, Randy?
Well, it looks like it says the Ceylon Pavilion in French below. Here it
Oh,
says-
yes, yes,
yeah.
right, yeah. Okay, I wasn't even looking down below. They're fixing something down here. Switzerland, this was a giant mobile here, mobile, where the winds blew it and they were angled at different pitches in different directions so that it would blow around. And one thing might be going clockwise, the other going counterclockwise. So it gave a lot of sense of movement over here. Then you have Austria, very modern looking pavilion here. Looking across the channel over to the site, this again, this is a sort of view when I drove in '69 saying, what the hell is that over there? That was just, matter of fact, they just redid somebody's movie and the same sort of thing. They drive in and off in the distance, there's that. Man in the community, talking about the need to coexist with the planet and stop polluting. And inside you could see things like the rusted out remnant of an old car, and they would signs saying if you just leave this here, it will take 70 or 80 years to rot away, and properly dispose of your stuff. More of Habitat. Again, you could take your own boat. Let's see if we zoom in on this one. I always wondered what would stop you from just driving along, pulling up here, saying, I'll pick you up at 5, and somebody jumping out and, being able to go inside. So, that'd be maybe people just behave themselves back then. I don't know. Which is, they had life rings all along here in case anybody did fall in. Inside the USA, as I mentioned, Indian headdresses and all sorts of other odds and ends. These panels unfortunately burned in a spectacular fire when they were trying to do work on the pavilion. I forget what year it was, but burned like mad. And thank God that didn't happen during the days of Expo, because there's no fire extinguishers or sprinklers or anything. And this thing went up like the proverbial torch. Expo services, again, rent out little gift shops, snack bars, things that along that line down there. Then Cosmos Walk here was both a pedestrian walkway going across over between the USA and USSR, and also a way for one of the mini rail systems to get across. Down below, they had, again, this is where all the giant air conditioners and everything else were. Here's a nice one of the pulp and paper. Steel had a thing that was very innovative for its time. You would go in and get a simulated visit to a steel mine where they were showing you, iron ore pellets and how they're processed and everything. But what made it innovative was they had the smell of a steel mill. So if you went in, that room that was hot, and they had you could definitely tell, things that were cooking and stuff like that. So it was a sensory surprise for a lot of people to walk in and hit that. This was one of the sculptures. I tried to find out a name, and Roger says, nope, guy didn't come up with a name for it. It's just, my sculpture. Looking across the site. maple leaf flag new for that period of time, so it was a big big thing for Canada to have a new flag that's cemented their identity as a sovereign nation and eliminating the former flag, which had ties back to being a colony of the UK. So you're nodding there, Randy. That do you have any
No, I'm
memories?
not nodding.
Thoughts on the flag?
I'm kind of, I live on a quiet street. I'm sitting in a window and there's like dozens of people walking down my sidewalk. You can't figure out what's going on.
Oh, maybe they're looking for the canceled Pride Festival.
Yeah, they're about 2 miles off if they are, yeah.
We were watching the news on let's see, Thursday night, and the guy was for the folks that don't know it, they were supposed to have a big festival in Long Beach, California this weekend, and they canceled it at not the last minute, like right after the last minute. On Thursday night, the head of the thing was out there talking about we're having this beautiful concert and what a great setting on the water and the Queen Mary and everything. And the next day it's canceled. And they said the city of Long Beach said they just never came through with their permits, the safety inspections they had to do for the thing. And it's just, to me, I think about the Pride Festival and all these other things. How do you get so close to doing something and not pull it off? I mean, I don't know how many people are going to lose money on that one. I feel sorry for the people, like they were on the news, that they drove in from, Phoenix and places like that. And now they're here, got a hotel and no festival. Real shame.
Yeah, the booths were all set up and everything, yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
So here we have the official time of Expo 67. We're very early in the morning. Over here, Esso, there's still Esso stations in Canada. Of course, we've gone to Exxon here in the States. They ran information booths for it here. Again, down below here, all sorts of, can we see it on this particular one? I think, yeah, you can buy your souvenir maps, and then they had maps out here for the "you are here," and get yourself oriented sign. This is probably pretty much just coming off of the Expo, the metro station here. You can see the building that Randy mentioned before, the changing area in the back, and then all here, these are ticket booths and kiosks. When you came out of the train station, you could come into the fair there.
I wonder if the majority of visitors came through this set entrance rather than what was called the main entrance.
I think quite a few came in the main entrance because that was where all the buses came in, and
There was a big parking lot adjacent.
yeah, yeah. So it's a big parking lot, and again, this was real convenient if you came in on the train. But I think a lot of people, if you were coming from out of town and not staying in Montreal proper, you would park in one of the outlying lots and come in on the main.
But if you parked on the other side of the what am I trying to call it? The seaway, where the ships.
Yeah, the St. Lawrence River.
Yeah, but yeah, there was that separate channel that was on one side of Expo, and across from the channel was a huge parking lot.
Yeah.
And there was right in the middle of it was a metro station.
Yeah, they would come in
from there. You had to take the metro once. It was free. One stop to Expo and get off there to enter. So they must have had a lot of people go that way.
Yeah, I think that was the Lemoyne Channel, and that whole parking lot and everything caused a huge thing because the people that were lived on that side of the river were saying, "Hey, Expo is being built on our side of the river, and we want some of the tax money and everything, and that sort of thing." And the city was saying, "No, it's being all built on our side." They had to go and figure out exactly where the line was in the river and where it was going. And finally, as I recall, the court said, "You guys can keep the parking lot money over here and be happy with that."
Yeah, and a lot of people on that side also said that we don't want Expo built there because it's overlooking a circus.
Yeah. But they ended up with a lot of parking lot revenue, so they were probably pretty happy with that. Engineers Plaza down below. Being an engineer, I'm glad they did that. This was one, Brock is still with us. Oh, he might have left us. Yeah, this was the United Nations Pavilion, and they had flags of all the member nations. But they had a really nice philatelic exhibit inside, and you could go in and buy stamps there. My uncle, again, I've mentioned him on numerous talks. My uncle Steve got me into photography, but he also got me into stamps. And I have a whole bunch of stamps from the very early days of the UN for 30, 40 years of it. But they had a wonderful exhibit out there of all their stamps, including a bunch of the original artwork for some of the ones that they had done. So this was a to me, gotta go to the World's Fair, gotta look at the stamps. And up here we are. These are the Nanas by Lily de Saint Fowley. I'm not sure how to mispronounce that. Again, there's a whole site online you can go and find out. After the fair ended, they took these back. I think it was Czechoslovakia or
No, these are on the roof of the French Pavilion.
French Pavilion. Okay, they're crazy looking things. The Kenny Mavic, a lot of these actually had motion to them, so you had clocks built into it, and they would work. Gears would all turn around. Here is the funicular railroad that I mentioned. Would take you for a ride up to the top. It turned out to be unair conditioned, and if you look at it, very crowded. So the stairway was a much better way of doing it from my point of view. Looking out across the site. Just so many great buildings of crazy sizes, shapes, and everything else. Yep, here's Yugoslavia. Oh, besides the street lights, we have one of the futuristic phone booths here. And this turned out to be, again, a great design and a lousy execution. Because the whole idea here is, again, we don't have the Clark Kent phone booths with go in and close the door. We don't have the serpentine phone booths of New York. You have this great phone booth out here, except when you were here, everything you said went up, bounced across, and came down on the other side.
Yep.
So we could hear you over there. And when it rained, the rain came in and got you soaking wet. So, and the other thing was, when you were making your phone call, if it wasn't raining, the sun came down and you were standing under basically a parabolic mirror. So,
Yeah, it's like being an ant under a magnifying glass.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, they look really good, don't they? Really modern, really cool and everything, but not real practical. Here again, United Nations. This was a tree sculpture. This is at the Indians of Canada Pavilion. There was like everything else you can imagine, different things of political controversy. Cuba tried to make a big thing about how the U.S. was picking on them. Could be a pavilion today. But Canada, inside Indians of Canada, they had a thing about, why don't you give us free control over our destiny and not be telling us what to do. And there was all sorts of things about taking the exhibit out, and finally they decided no, they've got a right to make their statement. And I think they realized if you stop protesting, people will pay less attention to it, so it was allowed to stay.
Surprisingly, Queen Elizabeth made a fairly long visit to that pavilion.
Yes, yeah.
So,
I get, I may be trying to atone for some of the things of the past, or
yeah,
what.
who knows?
Yeah. Mentioned Venezuela earlier before, just big square, blocky buildings, no windows or anything. Down here, one of the you are here, maps down below. Ethiopia in the back with their lion cubs that were donated by the emperor. It's funny, I don't remember much about Burma. I don't. Maybe the line was too long, or it struck me as too close to Thailand or whatever. But
Did they have an exhibit of shaving cream? Ha 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 ha. Anybody else get it besides? Okay, I know Wayne got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
It's really great when you drive on. They're having the big thing this year about the anniversary of Route 66. And there are some sections where you drive on Route 66 where they've recreated the Burma shave signs.
Right.
If good music is what you crave, get a tuba, Burma shave.
They even have some of them at Cars Land at Disneyland. They have some.
That's
Burma
right.
shave.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, we're gonna go and see some of it during construction phase. So we're actually earlier than all the crowds and everything. So different pavilions going up. In some cases, I'm able to figure out where they are, and others you go, okay, which one is that? So I'm not, like I said, I'm not sure which one this one is. Do you want to take a guess, Randy?
I'll see. There's the Netherlands.
Yeah, in the background here.
Right. I'm trying to position it. Yeah, I'm not sure. The previous slide, wasn't that France? I think that's France.
Okay.
Because there are pictures of it even further constructed, but the fins that they eventually mounted
Right.
to it are not in place. So it's just basically a circular concrete structure. But I mean, I definitely could be wrong. Although Katamavic is right, yeah, it's there.
Yeah,
So
right here.
position is pretty
Right.
accurate.
Yeah, I was actually
If it
trying to
helps, it
figure
looks
out.
like there was a fountain there too. See it? The bottom right? Yeah. Nope.
Over here.
No, no, in the previous picture.
Oh, yeah. Well,
See
this one
that? Isn't that a fountain?
could be.
Oh,
I was trying to figure out if this was actually like I said, the phone system pavilion before they built the bottom around it, or again, circular for circle vision. I haven't quite figured out what this one might be.
this almost looks like what was being pointed out as a fountain. Could that be the swimming pool? No, because it wouldn't have a rail like that. I don't know.
Oh, I was just guessing it's a fountain because it looked like it was only a
Yeah, no,
foot
you're
deep
right.
and
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, it's some kind of water feature. Yeah.
yeah.
Again, what a massive construction job this thing was. I mean, they have to build the island and pack it all down. They also, had to stabilize it for the weight of these buildings, so pilings and everything else going in. This one here, let's see. Wish
Well,
I
that's
could,
the phone company there,
yeah.
right there.
Yeah, so Iran would be over here. Not quite there yet. And then we hop into opening, man in the community.
Bill, you probably know this. They had a very precise plan for building certain pavilions where they scheduled them to start at a particular point, and others could not start construction for a while, trying to avoid massive traffic jams and slowing construction down, basically.
Yeah, they again, if you go back to this sort of thing, you can see they put some of the roads and stuff in, but as Randy mentioned, if everybody was trying to build right here, this whole thing could fill up an awful lot. So they would let some people build their stuff early, and then the next guys would get their permits. It's just like, you get your Group A boarding pass, Group B boarding pass on your plane.
Yeah, because
Is that an airplane hangar where your mouse is?
No, that's the telephone pavilion.
Oh, because it looks like there's an airplane right in front of it, right
No,
below your
that's
mouse.
right. Yeah. I don't think it's an airplane, but
over
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's just water and
Oh.
stuff out here.
No, it does.
Sorry.
It does. You're right. Yeah, because that earlier slide, the Netherlands looks like it's done.
Yeah.
And Scandinavia is pretty well, along. Yeah, there.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see who had to do the PERT chart to figure out who got what permission to go in and when.
Yeah, they mentioned it in the National Geographic article about it. It was, what's his name? Winston Churchill's like nephew or son or somebody with the name of Churchill, who was related to Winston Churchill, came up with this plan of how to build the site without, causing massive tie-ups. And they felt that that had been part of the problem with the New York World's Fair running into things opening late.
Yeah. This is the place of nations, and again, all the flags of the countries that are exhibiting there. This was allowed to fall into total decay, and some of these walkways were collapsing and that. So they're doing a massive reconstruction on it right now in Canada.
I hope they're following the original plans.
Supposedly they are. When we were up there a couple of years ago, we walked over there and you can only get as close as a chain link fence and look into all the, I remember seeing all these briar type bushes, things with giant thorns growing in there and thinking, oh man, what a mess. But I'm glad they decided to redo it. Little signs on each of the flag poles identifying the flag up above. And we have the mini rail. This is all Japan here. You can see the flag. Again, all sorts of people wearing suits and stuff. And you can see why they needed to go and borrow trash cans. That's not going to hold very much, is it?
It almost looks like in that previous picture, that little trash bin was set on top of something. It's got a,
Just a pole. Yeah, I don't think it's actually very big, this thing at all. I mean, you consider it the size of the people.
oh, okay,
But
yeah.
yeah, it's just a receptacle. It's also really nice because let's not put your trash inside here, which hides it. Let's put it out here so everybody can see your garbage.
Yeah, I guess it was better than throwing it on the ground.
Yeah, true. One of the phone booths back here. They also had these things over, they had some video kiosks where they had an information system that you were supposed to be able to find out, through a computerized information link, and it didn't work out real well.
Yeah, they closed it after just a couple weeks.
Yeah,
It's mentioned that Robert Fulford book, supposedly the nail in the coffin was when some lady stood in line for like an hour, got up to the front. I'm sorry, everything is booked for today, and she slapped the hostess.
Whoa.
Well,
real
considering
happy
what
about
goes on airplanes these days, it
yeah.
wouldn't surprise me.
Kill the messenger.
Yeah, precisely.
And inside the sign over here, you can see, we zoom just a little more. Expo services, they had, I think, Expo, I think they went up to G or H or something, but again, but they had a number of different ones. And it's over here to the kindergarten. We saw that before. Over here, the New York State Pavilion is supposed to represent the mountains of New York, whether it's the Adirondacks or the Catskills, I don't know. This is over here, Korea. This wood tower the building is just being restored now, and the tower is still lying there on its side. And there's big hopes they're going to restore that and erect the tower. Getting myself tongue-tied there.
Have they said what they're going to use the building for?
No, they haven't said. So it's
I
probably
know
just
for a long time, while it was still safe to go in and out, it was like a bus stop.
Yeah, for basically a sunshade and that sort of thing. Then they were using it for storage and keeping park stuff in there. Oh, here's New York. And we can see a bunch of Scouts of Canada there. So I said their uniforms, they had the same sort of hats, flat hats that we had, but theirs were kind of cooler. They kind of dipped in that sort of thing. Red jackets.
Did Boy Scouts in the US have that type of hat?
We did. Yeah, we had several different type of hats at that point you could do. These were called campaign hats. And some people wore them, and for the most part, we used the little, what was they called, field caps, the front and back, that they fold flat and then you open up.
Envelopes.
But certain troops, it was up to each troop whether or not you wanted to go with that hat. These hats were very expensive. Again, I don't remember the numbers at all, But say
Yeah.
if the cloth campaign or the cloth hat was maybe $1.50, these were $32 or something. I mean, you know, whatever they were. So when you worked at the World's Fair, that you had to sign for it and you had to give it back. They let you keep some other things, but they did not let you keep those hats.
You know, what I'm thinking back to is Cub Scouts had the baseball cap style hat.
That was in the later years. Cub Scouts always had the kind of blue cap, you know, baseball cap.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
Right.
With the yellow piping on it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, right. Yeah. And then for, like I said, Boy Scouts, we had you know, the other field caps. Again, light green for Boy Scouts, dark green for Explorers. I still have mine upstairs. And
I saw mine too.
yeah, then they later went to what you call it, baseball caps for them as well. That's when they went through the whole big thing where Ralph Lauren designed new uniforms and they were trying to make Boy Scouts trendy and all sorts of stuff. There is a tremendous market online for people buying vintage Boy Scout uniforms and stuff. And if you come up with a Boy Scout uniform from the 1930s and stuff, man, you are holding some serious bucks in your hand.
Well, I would think the Ralph Lauren ones would be pretty expensive too.
Yeah. Now look at this guy. Beep, 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 beep. beep. Trying to get through that site had to be just great fun.
Now, that might have been in early pictures. It looked like Africa had an all-white roof.
Yes, yeah, it hasn't been redone yet. And you can also see if we zoom in here, no leaves on the tree.
Yeah, and people are dressed in coats.
Yeah, coats and ties and hats and everything. Yep. Burma shave. Yeah. Republic Arab, the UAE, and they had some small statues outside. Again, they had some tile work over here, which unfortunately people waiting in the line decided that they pry pieces off to take souvenirs home, so it suffered over the years. Yeah, I've got some pictures of this tile work with just pieces missing. And here's the main entrance. Randy was asking
Right.
earlier whether people came in the main entrance or the you know, through the metro system. Again, this is where up here you could buy tickets. They had ticket booths. They also had places you could get hotel rooms, travel assistance. American Express had their exhibit up there. But this is where they had a big thing for all the tour buses to drop people off, all the city buses drop people off, and access to the main parking lot. So this again had a lot of people coming through there. This was the Musicals of Canada Pavilion, and they had over here. That's the white one, and over here is the Hospitality Pavilion. So inside, I've got some really nice interior shots of this. You could go in and you know, see musicians doing their own original works. You could sit down and they had unusual instruments you could pick up and strum different ones. They actually had hands-on experience. That pavilion was taken apart after Expo ended, and it's now a music camp, and still looks very much like it did today. It was uh, sponsored by this organization, which took it back to their facility, and it's still there today. Inside the United States Pavilion, we have this giant piece of crystal. It was our gift to Canada to celebrate their centennial of the founding of Canada. And we, again, inside the United States, rug weaving, dolls from different times. Whole big thing on politics. So they had all these banners and stuff that people would do. And, you know, I don't see, there's probably in here somewhere is a Tippecanoe and Tyler too, one, but you know, 1840, Harrison H. Tyler, the People's Candidate, and West Hartford is solid for sound money. Excuse me, I have my dentist calling. I will be right back.
You know, thing I noticed about 67 is the pavilions were individually very prominent, and there were not a lot of tacked on towers like there were in 64.
Yeah, Wayne, I think the Expo organizers had greater control over what was built than in New York. I mean, I'm sure New York has some control, but New York kind of just, I think partially because they had a hard time getting some, international exhibitors. They just kind of let them do what they wanted. I think Expo had like height limits, um, placement limits, like you didn't have like a little tiny pavilion sitting next to a gigantic pavilion. The gigantic pavilions all kind of lined the outside of the site, and the perimeter of the site, and then you got towards the center of the site, they were smaller. Expo 70 was the same way in Osaka.
Yeah, thanks for filling in. I'm sorry, I had some dental work done a week and a half ago, and I've ended up with what you call toothaches for the last just starting yesterday at lunch. So 2:45 on Monday they'll fit me in. So I'll just take aspirin until then. So
You've had not had luck with medical
what's the
procedures.
dentist appointment? 12. Well,
Just for cleaning.
yeah, well, as you leave, I'll be going in. So yeah, it was a call I just wanted to take. So nothing like having a
So Bill, first it was your eyes, now it's your teeth.
I have right here this thing that my factory warranty is expired.
Next, it'll be your eye teeth.
Yeah. Okay, now do we want to go to Expo? Can we afford this thing? How expensive is this going to be? Whoa, $250. That's kind of expensive. But if you want to go in at night, it's only $1. So that's a pretty good deal, right?
What do you multiply for mid-60s? Of course, that's Canadian.
Yes, that's Canadian. So it'd be about
Let's say that
$2.
was US. What would you multiply?
$4, I think. $3, 350 probably.
Be
I'm
about
sorry.
$2 American.
No, but I'm saying, let's say that was US, 250 US. What would you multiply to get, to account for inflation and all that? Is it 10?
Yeah, I think it's about 12 now.
Okay.
So,
It's
but again, a good deal.
It's
to
still
me.
a bargain, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the more recent fair, luckily Dubai was over 65 free, so I qualified for that. But earlier ones like in Hanover and Seville and those, they were like $60, $70 a day.
Yeah. No, this was
Still
definitely
well worth it. Well worth it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
250 in those days is equal to 24.75 today.
okay. About
So
12.
I would say still a
Right.
bargain.
Yeah. Then one of the things they had was ships that could come in. The whole area where the habitat was built was a previously existing port, and so they put the habitat out there, and they extended invitations to ships to come in. You can see the track out here for the Expo Express train system, but then they had ships. So they had here Her Majesty's ship, the Hampshire, came in. Every now and then I get queries from people. My dad's ship was there at Expo. Are you able to come up with pictures? So they had some American ships, some British ships, mostly a lot of Canadian ships would come in, and you could come on board, get tours of the ship, and it was then they were free. This was you could just walk on board and enjoy it. Again, you can see again grain elevators and all that back over here. Over in this particular one, they would demonstrate. I don't know if it shows up too well, but yeah, they had missile launching systems, and here's a small helicopter that they could go and fly. And then the latest and greatest, they brought in minesweepers and Coast Guard ships and light ships and all sorts of things. So you can imagine it was great duty for the Navy. Go and put your ship on display for a week, and you've got the whole city right over there at the end of your day. And I've looked up a bunch of these. I don't think any of them. I think one of the ships I came up with survives as a museum ship, and like you can imagine, over 60 years, the others are all, turned into Toyotas or something. Captain's gig. So when he goes aboard, sure he gets a nice ride. Back over to Laurent, we have the Gyrotron system up here. Again, another sculpture without a name. Actually, they did come up with a name for this one. I don't remember it offhand. They use very different street lights in that over here in Laurent. And this was always intended to be left after Expo as an amusement park. So they didn't go with the Expo type of lights. The Spiral, this took this down this past year in Canada. This was again bought from Expo 64 in Switzerland, brought on over. And this would cabin here, multi-deck cabin, slowly rotate and give you 360-degree views as the tower rose up to the top and down. So, again, sad to see it go, but it was 60 plus years old, and they said it just kind of finally wore out. And you can imagine, where do you get parts for it?
Well, Expo 92 in Seville had a similar structure, and it might still be there. It was on the fair side, it was against the river, so it was difficult to get to. I didn't go to it, but did the same thing. I mean, it looked pretty much like this.
Yeah, they had one of these out here at Marineland.
That's
they
right,
had them in a bunch of places, and over time they map that they had one at Magic Mountain, not far from me. I don't.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. The quarry in Montreal, again, it was built to be a permanent building out there as part of the Laurent area. This became a real disgrace for Montreal in later years when they had a civilian worker strike that impacted most of the civilian workforce of the city of Montreal. And the pavilion workers walked out and they left the fish inside, including dolphins and that, to just die. So
Oh,
yeah, I mean, it's terrible to me to think that people would be that much into their job, that I'm gonna go, that I care for this animal every day and I take care of it. I'm gonna walk away, and good luck to you.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
wow.
yeah. At least decide amongst your group, like, you two could go on this day. The rest of us will strike, but
yeah,
Man, that's
or
terrible.
don't even pay me during this period of time. I'm just gonna come in and feed the fish. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
that was it was really sad. Funny, there were
Um,
carnival tonight here in town, and I have to go and work LAPD detail, and somebody just texted me. You get weird things. Do you know they're going to have cotton candy? And I said, I don't know. Oh, I love cotton candy. Okay, well, in Canada it's cotton candy floss, but this guy is just super ecstatic about going to go get cotton candy. Okay.
That would attract me. I love cotton candy.
I haven't had it in years. We had a cotton candy maker for the kids, and they used it a lot. And I think they made me so much cotton candy it got burned out on it.
I can't have it because of the sugar, but
Yeah.
oh,
There's that funny commercial where the Michigan fan steals the little kid's candy, cotton candy, and he gets caught on the Jumbotron. Have you seen that, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
In the back, the log
Uh,
flume ride was there until about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they took that
Yeah,
out.
they just, in addition to the spiral, they just dismantled the remaining mini rail section.
Yeah.
So Randy, when you're talking
Excuse me,
about
I have another call.
how inexpensive it was to go to this fair, like $12. I think it's because almost all the museums in Canada are free. I know they're not all free, but almost all of them are. It's like
A great
close
deal.
to 200.
Yeah, a great deal of subsidies probably.
Yeah. So if they were going to charge a lot of money, people would just be like, what? Should be free.
Yeah, our art museum here in Long Beach has certain day. I think it's Tuesday or Monday. It's free. It might only be one Tuesday or Monday a month.
Cool. Oh, have you seen the new Lucas Museum is accepting memberships now?
Which is this one?
It's in LA. It's the Star Wars Museum, Lucas.
Oh, I've seen pictures of the building, but
Yeah, they just opened it up for membership
really?
Friday, I think, yesterday, or maybe the day before.
Yeah, the building's supposed to be spectacular. I haven't seen it in person, but
Nobody has.
oh, it's
Well,
not
I
up
shouldn't
yet.
say
Okay, I thought
nobody.
they haven't started building it. I thought they were like nearly
No,
completed.
no, I mean, I just mean they just opened it. So, or they're about to open it, something like
Okay,
that.
well, yeah,
But
people
they
are
opened
gonna.
up membership this week.
Okay,
Like,
I gotta look for that.
I thought it was Thursday or Friday, but
Okay, I'll look for that.
it's something like 150 for one person, and then it jumps up quite a bit for like a family membership, and then you get different gifts depending on
Right.
your level of membership. And yeah, if you're a huge donor, yeah, they had really nice swag for you.
Yeah, the what do you call it, aquarium here in Long Beach. I'm a charter member, but I pay the minimum. If you paid more, you got like a brick in the plaza out front. You
Oh,
know,
sure.
put your family name on it, that kind of stuff. But I didn't go to that level.
Yeah. No, people love doing that though, don't they? I mean, they did that here for the Olympics, and of course, Disney World has that, and Disneyland.
Well, and then what do you call it, Ellis Island, when they were doing the
Really?
restoration on that Ellis Island in New York.
Didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, you could. It was Lee Iacocca, I think, was kind of in charge of that, and he set up this thing where you could have a brick made, different size bricks depending on how much
Oh,
you donated. And if your family, a family member came through Ellis Island as a immigrant, then you could have that name, your name put on, or his name put on that.
So I'm back. So thanks again for filling in, Randy, my co-host here. We have had a really great mail carrier forever, and she retired. And they put a mail carrier in here that was just they transferred her in from another post office because I think they want to get rid of her. So she came the other day, with they had the little thing signed for a package, and I said, "Why am I signing for this package? It's for Goya Street." She couldn't understand how my house and that house could have the same number. I mean, it's a grid system, right?
oh
So
no.
then she came and scanned a bunch of packages and never uploaded them, so they never got shown for tracking until they showed up, at the other end. And so I complained, and they gave us another mail carrier. And yesterday, I get the thing that your packages were delivered, no packages. And there were two of them were prescriptions, and I said, and the other was some World's Fair films. And where are my packages? So I finally looked at my security camera, and he came up and for whatever reason put them inside a bush. So that we walked in, I came in from patrol. Carol came in from lunch and everything, and well, matter of fact, she was home when he was here. He didn't ring the doorbell, so Carol went out to lunch, didn't see him. Came back from lunch, didn't see him. I came in, didn't see him. Walked the dogs, didn't see him. Finally, I looked at the security camera, and he goes and puts him inside a bush. And he was probably trying to be nice to keep a porch fire from getting him, but as I
Right.
just said to his supervisor, ringing the doorbell would be a really nice step. So the last 2 weeks have been hell for mail, so I apologize for the delay. And if any more calls come, and if one is published as clearinghouse, we'll see.
Well, we get the ones where it's not only the mail, the post office, but other delivery services. They ring and then they run. They don't leave the package, because it requires a signature. Let's say a lot of coins that I'll buy at auction, if they're over a certain amount of value,
Yeah.
I've got to sign for them. Well, they ring and they run. It's like I'm there 2 seconds later and they're gone.
Oh, we don't even ring it. I mean, again, if I'm sitting here, I can see the side of the front door. I can sometimes see their shadows on the wall, to the glass. But I'll open the front door and there'll be, this giant ass box sitting there, and it's like, you could have rang the damn doorbell.
Well, in my case, with the coins, there's a note stuck to the door. You've got to go over to Anaheim Street and pick up your parcel.
what I got a kick out of was like filed a complaint about this woman picking up the packages and scanning them, but not uploading it. So the next day, there's a thing in my mailbox, which is the post office 5630 scan form, which was telling her to pick up my packages and scan them. Instructions: please return this notice to your supervisor upon return to your unit. Do not leave with customer.
Maybe she thought it meant she wasn't supposed to leave with you.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can take
we're
you to
not supposed to
lunch.
go together, right? Anyway, it's been an interesting couple of weeks around here.
Yeah.
Let's see, the Gyrotron. Oh, they had a whole marina out there. It became very popular, and they had to start telling people, do not show up without a reservation because we may not be able to fit you in. This little white building out here is a weather station that they had radar. They could look at the weather conditions and all the barometers and all the rest of it so that they could let the folks know. But off to the side, there's a whole ship's chandler store where you could buy stuff. So imagine if you had the money to buy this boat here. You know, that's a nice way to come over and go visit Expo, right? You didn't have to pay
Yeah,
for a hotel.
I
I mean,
like that one, yeah, with the wood. exposed
yeah,
wood, yeah.
it'd be really nice to any of these would be okay. I mean, pretty good stuff.
Plus, you could stay on the boat, save the money for the hotel.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could cook on the boat. You could do anything you wanted over there. So great fun. And they had a whole bunch of rides that are now very commonplace, but were still kind of new and everything brought over. A lot of them done by European manufacturers. So, all sorts of things that spin you in circles and have you test your intestinal fortitude. Here's another view of the marina. And this is again over at the lake amusement area. So they had a recreation of Jack Cartier's ship here. You had this theater was over here. They did stage shows and musical performances.
I think that's still there, isn't it?
It is. It's still there. Yep.
And
Yeah.
I think they still use it for performances, right?
Yes. Right. Exactly. As part of the Luron. Here's the live flume ride, which was super popular. In the background, Fort Edmonton, done as a stockade in that. But this was a very long ride. The name is something like La Pituity or something in French. It's, again, I'll mispronounce it.
It's Pitoon, I think.
Yeah, thank you. It's but it became super popular and quite the outcry when they decommissioned it.
And there's a great picture of Robert Kennedy and a couple of his kids riding.
Yes,
him.
in it, right? Yes. Oh, went the wrong way. And again, the entrance over to Fort Edmonton. Out here, this was an area used for log rolling exhibitions. You can imagine it was pretty cold in the opening and ending days of Expo. They also did water ski shows out here, a variety of things to entertain.
And the fountains off to the very left were dancing waters at night.
Yes, right. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate your input on these things. Thank you. Back to the main site. Kodak of Canada, they had such a big pavilion in the 64 fair. Well, this one here, you didn't have much of a line, but they were very big on it because people are now becoming aware that Instamatic cameras were really a big thing. Unlike the United States, they could sell Instamatic cameras here, and they would also give you tips on how to use them and that sort of thing. So there were often very long lines going into this particular pavilion. Czechoslovakia in the back, Canadian National over to the side here, Cuba down here.
Bill,
Cuba,
I'm sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, in this photo, just to the right of Kodak, that empty lot, they're starting to put in a restaurant there, which ended up being a red and white striped tent. Because they discovered after the first day, basically, that they had nowhere near enough restaurants.
Yeah, so they put out an appeal, could anybody come? And this fellow that was putting this in, I believe he owned a chain of supermarkets
Right,
in,
Steinberg.
right. And he was friends of one of the commissioner generals or whatever. So yeah, it's a good catch. You could see the construction going on, and that popped up as about 2 months into the fair, 6 weeks, something like that. Hot
Right.
dog, hamburger, sandwich type place.
I think it was barbecue, actually.
Was it? Okay.
I think so, but I'm not
Yeah,
positive.
could be. I don't recall eating there. In Cuba, boy, you were told as the United States you were not supposed to go to Cuba. That was just, the Cuban Missile Crises and everything. So of course we get to there, and what do? You make a beeline for Cuba. And in there, the entire pavilion was how terrible you are and how great Fidel is, how wonderful communism is. It was probably the worst hard sell thing that I can remember.
And of course, Americans were told, do not even think of buying cigars or rum.
Yes, that's right.
But they did anyway.
We came back in '69 from our trip up there. We had gone to the USSR pavilion, and we had gotten all these brochures and everything bringing back. And we had also bringing back some fireworks, which were illegal. And in the trunk of my car, I had put the fireworks under the spare tire, and I had thrown all my Expo souvenirs on top of the Expo on top of the spare tire. So we came in, and for that day they said, open up the trunk, and the guy opens up the trunk, and it's all these things from the USSR pavilion. And you a communist? No, sir. I was at the World's Fair. And he goes, oh, that closed 2 years ago. No, it's still there. I mean, and I had to show him this stuff, and I'm again taking these brochures, handing it to him, hoping he doesn't see the fireworks through the hole in the spare tire. Oh, I was a rascal. Oh, fire at the Chinese pavilion. So again, they had a display catch fire and burn up a bunch of the exhibits inside, and they had to cart it all out and rebuild the place. And I have other pictures of it with showing more of the damage.
So Bill, you said the restaurant remained open.
Yes.
So I had always assumed it was a restaurant fire, but I was wrong. Okay.
No, I think somebody said it was a exhibit, that there was something that was shorted out inside the exhibit area.
Sure.
Again, you don't know these things are true. Somebody said something about a vacuum cleaner short circuiting and starting a fire, and they fled in panic. But yeah, they made a point that and then somebody else said restaurant, but then they made a point that you can come around, the restaurant's still open. A traditional Japanese garden. Yeah, here you can really get an idea of the extent of the amount of damage that was done to this. And again, the restaurant would have been in the back. This was the main exhibit area in here. Flags of Nations, the flame that was burning throughout the time Expo was on display. Well, again, this is where the ships would come in. Again, they would be used to making this port displays, so they would have a display they would put down and tell you everything that they had here. So ship laid down in 1959 and joined the fleet in '63. So it was pretty new by the time it was there in Expo. And missiles, ship-to-air guided weapon for own ship and convoy protection. So again, they had all the latest and greatest of these things. The Sea Slug Mach 1. I don't know how many marks they ever got to, but pretty neat stuff. And a life raft. Oh, Carol bringing me one of our flowers outside. If the ship were to go down, or if they were rescuing somebody, they could drop these life rafts off, and they would they were made to self-right themselves, and then you could climb on board and be protected from the elements. The West 61 is a helicopter they carried on board for search and rescue.
Looks like an airplane, a commercial aircraft life raft.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, those the evacuation slides turn into life rafts, and you can erect canopies over them.
Oh, can you?
Once you launch them, of course.
Oh, I went down one time, but it was at an airport, so they didn't have to get us in float. First time I was ever on a jet. It did not make it off the ground at takeoff.
So what happened?
We were in it was really fun. It was Syracuse, New York, and we were going down to New York City for what you call it uh, it was Thanksgiving, and I went over to Syracuse. I got on the plane. My college roommate was coming over. I think this was Mohawk Airlines.
Sure.
I don't think it was Allegheny. It was Mohawk. My college roommate was coming several hours later. Well, we got on the plane. First time I've ever been on a jet. We got down the runway, and a very large bird went in the engine, which exploded. The plane veered off the side of the runway because it lost all the thrust instantly on the one side, went off the runway, and the landing gear went off. So now we're skidding along on the one wing and going down. And you may remember, I don't know if it was in your day, Randy, they didn't have the latching things for baggage. They just went up, and there's like a bungee cord holding stuff up there.
Yeah, when I first started, the 737s were like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so all that stuff is falling down, and it's shaking, and oxygen masks are coming down. So we had to evacuate and go down the slide. And and they were really smart. They got you down, and nobody was hurt. It worked out well. But sign this waiver, and you can make a free phone call anywhere you want and have all the food and dinner food you want until we get you back out of here. The waiver was, I'm not going to sue you for anything. So I'm sitting there in the bar, and I called my girlfriend. She had moved to Arizona, and it was the furthest person I knew to call and say hi. And I couldn't reach my parents. They were on their way to pick me up, and they get to Kennedy Airport, and the sign says "Sea Agent," which is euphemism for freighter in Midwest. But my roommate comes in, and the first time he'd ever been on a jet, they couldn't get the landing gear down in Seattle, so they had to foam the runway. So he comes in, and he's getting ready to take his flight, and he sees me sitting at the bar having a great time. And he said, "Hey, what's happening? You missed your flight?" I said, "No, it's right out there." And he sees the plane at the angle and everything. The color just drained. Now he has to get on the plane, and so they got us another plane. They got us out of there, but it was a hell of a way to start flying.
Yeah, I bet, because in 43 years, I only jumped down slides at training, so.
Yeah, what got me is that plane that just had the issue where the guy ran onto the runway and got hit.
All right.
They were having all sorts of people taking their carry-on bags, and
it happens every time.
Yeah, I mean, it was and in this particular one when I did it, and this would have been about 1969 or 70. I'd have to go back and look. I mean, people ran for the thing, they jumped out, but nobody was trampling anybody. Everybody was behaving themselves.
Well, Bill, though, but back then people checked their luggage. Because you couldn't put big luggage in those racks. You could put. When you have 6 legs in a day, and you said coats and hats only, and eventually it became coats and cats because you had said it so many times during the day, and you start tripping over your tongue. You had to do the sweep with your hand, to make sure there was not any piece of hard luggage up there. That was strictly forbidden. So people didn't do luggage on. Basically, they might, ladies might bring a little hat box or one of those little overnight makeup bag type things, but there was no luggage to bring off with you. So.
Yeah. There's another time I was on a 747 that caught fire midair. We can tell that story sometime. That was great fun. HMCS Skeena, His Majesty's Canadian ship. And I'm trying to remember this one.
I think it's on Ontario.
I think it's Ontario. All sorts of futuristic robot things built out of weird parts. The teen scene. Realize a working telephone that didn't fry you. Some days, just like New York, depending on the day and everything, some days were very light attendance.
So could you go back to that one? Yeah. Okay, I guess that's Expo Express in the background.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right it's there. Going. Okay, I know where it is. Yeah, it's going along that channel. Yeah, that the ships went through.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
behind, that's the Judaism Pavilion, I think, going
Yeah, this is
behind.
Judaism right here.
Yeah.
Who wants to try to pronounce that one? This was a big thing, though. This was a ship that had been involved in World War II. So it was one of the longest serving ships in the Canadian Navy at that point in time. You can imagine with many of these ships, they've been refitted and modernized and everything. The Blue Nose was a famous Canadian ship, and this was the Blue Nose 2, a faithful replica of it. And you could come on board. Matter of fact, I have some really nice 3D pictures taken on board. Someday we'll have to break out the glasses and do a whole 3D day again. But you could come on board here, and this shows up in the Expo, I'm sorry, the Epcot film of Canada. There's a nice shot of Blue Nose 2.
Well, the Blue Nose, either must be the original one, is on the dime, Canadian dime.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
But just like they rebuilt the Bounty, you know, for the movie, they used the original Blue Nose plans, and they try to use the same tools and techniques and everything to make it as authentic as possible. But I do believe they added a diesel engine. Here's the subway station, the entrance here. You can see the symbol for the metro. The 60s pop art. So we got the the New York State Pavilion, which in later years became the LSD Pavilion. So talk about modern stuff. People all gathering to watch the water ski show, they're actually, I believe, watching the log rollers at this particular one. The side of one of the message boards here. There goes the water skiers. I don't imagine that ever was warm. I mean, I can't recall. I try to remember the last time I was in the St. Lawrence River. We were there up in Alexandria. I don't remember it being very warm.
It's amazing how hot it can be away from water. Then you get on the water,
Yes.
and it's, you need a sweater.
Yep. I think we got time for one more batch here. Okay, looking over towards pulp and paper. I don't recall what this was. I think it was a display of some kind, but I don't remember.
It's for the USSR.
This was, yeah,
Yeah,
I think they had
it's the
display.
forecourt to the USSR. If you show the entire frame, yeah, those flags are the 13 or whatever SSRs.
Right.
And
But
then
I think they put displays in these.
they did, yeah. I don't know. You can't really see anything in there, I don't think.
Why this is empty, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
And in the USSR, again, we have undersea mining equipment. We're going to drop this in the ocean, and it's going to do all these wonderful things. And here is a refinery, again, all stylized, but showing how we're going to just take all the oil right out of the ocean, refine it right there in the oil platforms, and send gasoline ashore. Our subway map. And as I said, they had all sorts of spacecraft on display. Some of them were mock-ups used for training. Some of them were, just reproductions used for, for the fair. But they were really big on rubbing Sputnik into everybody's, nose at that point in time. Despite it being a number of years after, we were still the first. There's some details of Thailand. Czechoslovakia is mentioned, huge hit of the fair. They had a big display on glass. besides the wooden carving we've seen, which they had quite a bit of, they had quite a display of glass work. And these are all glass tiles that were inset making up this this mosaic. They had a very popular restaurant and a film inside, and it became one of the must-see pavilions of Expo. Here's some of the glass work. Some more of it. I look at this and it reminds me of the Chihuly Museum up in Seattle, you know, just
Yeah, it does.
yeah, just abstract forms and shapes and everything. And it's just kind of fascinating to me, the so delicate a medium and what they're able to create in it. Stained glass window, quite different than any of the stained glass windows I grew up at church. More glass panel there. All sorts of glass goblets and displays and candlesticks and various odds and ends. Here's the wooden part that I mentioned. I have the stats on my website on how many carvers it took and how many years it took them to do it. Last night on the news, Randy, I don't know if you saw the predictions that they were saying with the wind that we're supposed to be getting today, there's going to be all sorts of fires. So now there's one out in Lancaster. Just getting alerts on that.
Do you have wind up there where you are now?
What's that?
Are you having winds right now?
No, it's very calm where we are right
Yeah,
now. Knock wood.
Just starting to blow here a little bit.
Yeah. They had a whole fairyland at Czechoslovakia, and a set of figures, a knight and the drawbridge and the damsel, or you know, in distress, and the guy up above with the bow and arrow going to take them out. More of the artwork. I always wondered where this went after. And we have the USSR here and Steel Pavilion in the back. This, I'm trying not to sneeze now. This, I think, was part of the Man and Agriculture, or what do they called it? Man and something. Man and... Anyway, they had a whole thing about tractors and agriculture and how you could make land more productive. And that's extended out from the USSR back out in this direction. Do not even think about going in that way. So you had a concrete area out here, and you can see a band out here performing. So they brought up all sorts of people. They could perform out there, entertain the crowds. Then, oh, this was a really nice area. They had a whole rose garden, and if we look at the kiosk here, you could come in and you could buy a catalog of both the sculptures and the flowers, and you could arrange to come and buy flowers here and you know, have them shipped to your house. But they had quite a elaborate set of gardens and everything. So I think that's one of the things that Expo did really well. They had all the pavilions, but if you wanted to get away from it, they had some beautiful open gardens and sculptures and you know, areas that were I just thought a very nice contrast to all the hustle and bustle of the fair itself.
Yeah, these are right next to an existing building. Probably well, no, we're on the monorail, the mini rail, but
yeah,
Chateau Chatelaine, I think, or something Chatelaine.
Chatelaine House, yeah.
House, yeah, that was used for VIP dinners and stuff like that, but it was an existing building.
Yeah, it was an existing restaurant. They made it a VIP lounge for the time of the fair, and now it's open to the public again.
Right.
Still there today. This sculpture here rotated, and it was all these hodgepodge of shapes that then would come and form a figure. And again, over the various years of Man in His World, they would put all sorts of different designs on it and maintain it. Calder's piece. You could go and get one of these little pedicabs here from Tilden, and they would take you around. And again, big site, so I guess one way to do it. But you know, I just feel for the poor guys that had to get through some of the crowds. These guys have obviously been to the Fun Hat Shop, including You know, she's carrying hers, but mom, dad, the kids, he's got his feather hat and everything. Japan, outside of Iran, looking down across the canals. This is inside Switzerland. I never thought of Swiss as being big in fabric or whatever, but there's a display of Swiss costumes or everything. I know one time I flew over to Switzerland and they lost my luggage and I had to go in and buy clothes to go to a business meeting the next day. How anybody in Switzerland could afford clothes is beyond me. Thank God Pan Am had to end up buying my clothes. They reimbursed me. But I mean, I was buying a tie and the tie was $75 just for a tie. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah, I remember the first time I went to Europe, we were there for several months and did the Europe on, I think it was $10 a day then, but you get to Switzerland and it's like everything is so expensive.
Yeah. I
We
mean, I
ended up
loved it.
following Arthur Frommer's, the author of that series of
Yeah.
books. His wife had this thing about inexpensive restaurants. And she always said, like in Switzerland, go to the university or go to a department store. The department stores have tea rooms. Universities have cafeterias, which are almost always open to the public, and eat there. She was right. They were very inexpensive. The food was good.
Well, we ate at restaurants because I was on a Warner Brothers expense account, but
Well,
like I
yeah.
said, just a shock of going and buying a tie for $75. And this would have been about let's see, would have been about 1985, something like that. I mean, again, multiply that by 12, right?
Yeah, we did, spend one night at a, where you did fondue restaurant. And we thought it was a fortune. And another night at a, more upscale restaurant, it was also a fortune.
Yeah.
Especially by our standards as students.
So we're inside the telephone pavilion and we can see this gal on the brand new, very exciting, every girl must have one, Princess telephone. You can also look at it and see this is very unusual because it's a 10-button touch tone phone. They didn't have the star or the pound key, which were reserved for future use. And you could, for banking and all that, that was all in the future, which the hostess here did demonstrate that it was all coming. But this was done in conjunction with Disney because, again, they had the Circle Vision film. And you can see it up here that you could speak to, if you push 2, you could speak to Snow White, speak 8, you could speak to Goofy. And this was a very great thing where it had a system that would listen for your sounds. And when you stop talking, you'd pick up this absence of sound and it would continue. So you'd do number 2 and Snow White would come on and say, "Hi, it's Snow White. Are you having a good day at Expo?" And you'd say something back. "That's really great. What's your favorite pavilion?" And you'd say whatever, you'd say jumping up and down. I love that one too. I mean, it was very, very clever. They used it again at Hemisphere 68, the same sort of thing. So kids would actually be convinced because they would be talking to Goofy and, "Well, oh, you having fun? Oh, golly, me too."
Bill, do you or anybody else here know? Okay, the first Princess phones in the US were rotary, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, when they came out with the push button versions, did they have the 2 additional buttons on them here in the US? No,
No,
okay.
the first ones came out. Even the first home phones in the U.S. I know it very well. The Model 500. They all were 10-button phones, and then about 4 years later, they started introducing the the 12 buttons, and they had to make a whole new retrofitting kit to go and put those in all the existing phones.
Oh,
If you look
really?
at this very closely, you can see the outlines of this rectangular pad for the phone.
Yeah.
And we'd actually send the installer out to your house. He would take out the 10-button phone and put in a 12-button pad in there for you.
Yeah, we didn't get a push button phone till they had the additional buttons. We had rotary, well into the late 60s, I'm guessing. But
Yeah, remember
Early
this
phones belonged to the telephone company too.
Yeah, I was just saying,
I-
well, these phones were the property of a Bell system, I mean,
yeah, The only reason why we had extensions in our house was because my uncle worked for the phone company, so, you know, he managed to snag one here and there.
Right. And we're inside Great Britain. These are very large sculptures. They're about 12 feet high.
And I mentioned before, they're in Calgary now.
Yep. Weird ones outside.
Like Star Wars.
Germany again. And this one, I don't know if it makes up here. This thing about how old this log is, and you know, count the rings and everything else. There's France with the panels that you mentioned on it. Back to Laurent. Sometimes these things are in order. Sometimes they're just thrown in a box and you go with it. But all the games here, throw the ball, win a Cupid doll, you know, that sort of stuff. This is a small roller coaster they had out there on the site, and you know, again, kid size, very popular. You can see all these kids watching as it goes by, and you know, maybe you're a little young for it, but come back next year, and the fire is still growing. Great. Then they had their version of the Avis Rent-A-Car, the antique car ride. I don't know if these came from Arrow Development or another company, but again, you could feel like a big kid driving your car out there. And a simulated bobsled ride. All sorts of thing. Again, this bridge is again preceding Expo, and as you can see, the road comes down, has an off ramp to come down onto the island. This is a pre-existing building for the Bridge and Tunnel Authority, or Bridge Authority out there. The aquarium out here, and it's just peeking into view out here, is the rail yard and the sheds for the Expo Express. All the tracks would come in here. They'd service the trains. But again, it was a fun area. Laurent is still there today. It's run by an outside company. Oh, I gotta send this one to somebody. Hang on, let me make a note of this one here. Number 45.
Isn't Laurent's existence kind of precarious these days?
Yes. Yep.
I heard, yeah.
So here, these guys had performed at the 64 World's Fair, and they are performing here at Expo 67. The nerveless Knox. They build themselves up. These are very long, flexible poles, and they would do a routine climbing up and swinging back and forth, and then time it that I can go from my pole to your pole, that sort of thing. And there's a fellow you may have seen. He has very straight hair that goes up. His name is Bella Knock, and we saw him do a routine, the Ringling Brothers Circus, before they retired that was just breathtaking. And I'm in touch with him. I've got to get him a picture. Every time I come across his family footage, I got them performing up at Storytown in Lake George, and sent him movies and stuff. He'll get a kick out of this. But there's the nerveless Knots. And there's oh, she's all set. She's going to make sure she doesn't get too wet for that ride. And over the US, it was a very popular exhibit. They had a Mercury capsule, a Gemini capsule, and then mock-ups of the upcoming Apollo capsule and the lunar lander. This had been a actual flown in space capsule, not manned, but done to test the effectiveness of the giant parachutes to bring it back down. And this is a surveyor, some of the things they sent up to the moon beforehand to make sure that, you know, there was all the fear was the moon covered in 30 feet of dust that the LEM would have sunk into. But no, send up the surveyor and explorer and get the ideas of what we were doing before we sent people up there. I'm getting chilly just looking. This ship was moved someplace else and allowed to rot and is gone now. This restaurant out here, I believe these buildings are still here and still in use. Back to Switzerland. Germany over here and Australia. They had a very modern looking pavilion.
So that was taken from the Expo Express.
Yes, that's, yeah, going from the train. You can see the protective fence as we went along here. And you can see the glare on the windows taken through it. One of the "You Are Here" maps. So when this was taken, we were there. Nice to know. There is again Swan Lake, and then the Calder statue and some of the other odds and ends. Habitat. I don't know what pavilion this one is. Does anybody recognize which particular design these would be?
Mhm.
I'm thinking maybe Mexico with the feathers, but I don't know for sure. And the sign here was not clear enough to be able to read.
I was thinking more like, well, like, you know, Thailand or Burma or something.
Yeah, like I said, can't quite make that out. Well, we'll end with that, our mystery for the day, and hope folks enjoyed it. And I'm glad, Don, that the mountain lion didn't, bobcat didn't get you. Let me
They
just
did.
look in chat and see what I missed or got wrong. Yeah, Tom Brooks said, please let Wendy join, and she never showed up. And Brock, thanks for the good stuff up front. Okay, well, I'm glad I kept Brock happy.
Hey, Bill, what was the intended demonstration of Habitat? What was it supposed to be demonstrating?
That you could build modular housing and do it cheaply on a factory and then put them together quickly with a minimum of construction effort. So they had, the guy had the brilliant idea again that you could do that and, you know, mass produce them just like you have assembly lines for cars. They had the assembly line for houses. So part of what they had at Habitat was a display of how they did it. So they showed how they had a steel frame, how they poured the concrete in. Then another one, they put a wood floor in, and then they installed the kitchen, the appliances, everything, picked it up with a crane and put it on its site. And they had, you could get a 1, 2, or 3 cube. I think 3 cubes was the largest of the ones you could get. But they showed how you could have multiple levels, a stair going from, you know, your downstairs to upstairs. So he was convinced, and you know, that this would be a great way to build these things cheaply and put it all together. It's interesting. It didn't work for a couple reasons. One, it turned out not to be as cheap to do as they needed to do. And just like Randy mentioned, with the you need somebody for you know, being a traffic cop of building the site. You had so many unions that were involved in building these houses that, you know, you had to schedule it, how they move through. And then when you start finishing the cubes, where do you stack them if the site's not ready? You know, can you put them out there and do that sort of thing? So they found over time, it's, as I mentioned earlier, it's a very exclusive place to live, but it can become very expensive because if you have to do repairs to your place, you know, it's very hard because all your kitchen appliances were built in, and they were all sized and shaped and everything to go specially for Habitat. So a lot of people have had to totally gut their units, and there's some the original one that was built for the designer is still pretty much all original, and other people are proud that they've been able to keep theirs fairly original. But
They fetch a premium if they have like original kitchen, or, you know, because the bathrooms are like molded out of fiberglass, basically.
Right.
Inserted.
Yeah. So but the whole idea was you could build these things in a factory sort of concept. They had the same thing. Disney tried it right around the you know, a couple of years early with the Monsanto House of the Future. build them in, in a factory, truck them in, put them on the site. And then people said, but what if I want a window over there? You can't get it. What if I want this? I can't get it. And it didn't sell as well as they predicted.
Yeah,
see.
San Antonio has a hotel. It was right across from the Hemisphere
Yep.
site, and it's still there. I think it was a Hilton at the time
Hilton, yep.
of the fair. That was built. It just looks like a high rise. It's not that random stack look, but they were individual units built on the ground and hoisted into place to form a skyscraper.
Yeah, and I'm convinced that they saw that and that became, how Disney did, what you call it, the contemporary and
Temporary.
Polynesian.
The thing with Habitat, I think the intention was to do low cost housing. I mean, the designer showed these types of developments being built in in Israel, for instance. He was an Israeli.
Right.
In various sites throughout the world, a lot of it intended, I think, to be low cost housing, or at least affordable housing. But Robert LaRoche says I'm wrong, but I know I read way back when, I can't tell you where I read it, but that, and maybe after they got this going, it might have been cheaper, but they figured that when Habitat was finished in 1966, 67 for Expo, they would have had to have sold those units for an average of $105,000 to break
Wow.
even. Well, in 1967, you could buy a Beverly Hills mansion for like 85,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Originally this was supposed to be about 3 times the size that it was, and this was supposed to be a prototype. He was going to be building one in Brazil that was going to be about 10 times the size. And with the failure of this, that was the end of that. But yeah, he had the whole idea of taking the barrios and the slums and everything, and doing these things real quick and fast.
Yeah, and the big one that was supposed to be built at Expo would have taken up that whole peninsula, basically.
Right.
Was an A-frame type thing. There were these huge A-frame steel structures built, and then the homes were inserted into the A-frame.
Right. Yeah, they found out one thing when they built Habitat. They made a mistake on. They didn't insulate the floors well enough. And if you had a cube which you had empty space underneath you, the wind coming in off the Laurentian Mountains going down the St. Lawrence Seaway, they found a lot of people had to go and get rugs all of a sudden and everything, and it became a retrofitting thing to try to put insulation in there. Again, sometimes things work great in theory, but he didn't think about the wind.
And
Do
then,
all of them exist still? Is it all
Yeah.
still there?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
and if you want to move in there today, you have to have a good seven-figure check to get in. It's
and you'd probably be on a waiting list at that.
yeah,
Oh,
they show
wow.
up about 2 or 3 of them a year, it seems, and they don't last very long. The units go, and they had talked about using it for when they did the Olympics, there was some talk about building an Olympic village that way, and then people said, "Do you have any idea what this cost?" I mean, you know, but
Plus, they leaked really badly too. I don't think during Expo, but in the maybe 5 or 10 years after Expo closed, and they were strictly residential development, they had a lot of leak issues.
yeah. Yeah. Again, great on concept, and then in reality, not as great, but it's still nice when you go out there today. I mean, the grounds are well kept, and it's and they do tours, Darren. There's groups up there that do tours of the original tour unit, and they sell out like instantly. But you can go up there, and they make you wear little white boots on your shoes so you don't do anything to the original 1967 floors and that. But I mean, I've looked online and tried to figure out, oh man, I'm going to be up there the week after, the week before. Is it worth changing the trip? Up, sold out. They go real quick.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, I'm going to go dash to lunch. I have a few chores to do, and then I have to do a LAPD detail at a carnival tonight. So
Where's the carnival?
Northridge Park. Yeah. So maybe I'll have some cotton candy. So we'll see.
Think of me while you're eating it.
I will do that. And next week we may be doing some more Expo 67. Joey and his crew were all off doing the 64 fair today, so I didn't want to do that. But we may go back to 64, or I may do some more of the films that I've gotten. So we'll see what we come up with.
Bill, just real quick, have you ever done Panama Pacific in San Francisco?
Was that what?
Have you ever done the Panama Pacific Exposition? San Francisco?
No. It's interesting. I had somebody send me a very, very nice note about 10 days ago about they can't make it to these talks because they have something else, but could I do one about a different World's Fair? And as I said, I only try to do the ones that I have a lot of my own collection. I don't want to just go and surf the internet and repackage it. I do have plans. I'm looking at this very large box of stuff from 1904 that I hope to do coming up in the future.
That
But
would be fun.
I have only maybe 10 original pictures from Pan American.
There are a lot of photos online, but once again, we're into copyright and publishing issues and
Well,
all
most
that.
of that's going to be public domain by now, given the years on it.
Oh, I guess so, yeah. Because
Yeah.
there are some great photos. Because you were mentioning about, no, I'll quit so we can all go, about all the art on Expo 67's site. 1915 San Francisco had a ton of art.
Yeah.
I mean, just tons of art on it. Yeah.
Yep. And luckily, some of it survived.
Some of it didn't, because if you walk through the Marina District, you can see where people have what was statuary on the sides of the buildings, that kind of stuff, at their next to their front porch, built into the home, and they had an architect build it into the
Yeah.
home. But it's all worn out, because it was once again probably built of plaster of Paris and maybe a little concrete.
Right.
And those homes are not cheap either.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'll see you folks next week, and I hope people have a good time, and I hope they put out our fire. So I'll talk
Good
to you
luck with
guys.
that.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Bill.
Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Well, later.
Bye-bye.